Dear students, let's start the syllabus, that is atomic spectra. It comes in paper 2, physics paper 2, and uh, in this class we will just discuss about the introduction to atomic spectra, in the sense what is atomic spectra, why do we study the atomic spectra, and the various atomic models proposed by the various scientists. That thing we will study in this class. Okay, so now atomic spectra, it is the branch of physics which deals with the study of spectrum. So when the term comes spectrum, I will clear you that you all seen the spectrum in the BSc third semester while doing the dispersion experiment. So mercury source spectrum you have observed, that is a very bright and beautiful lines in the spectrum you have seen. Okay, so now then what is this spectrum? It is the ordered or sequential arrangement of wavelength is called spectrum. In the sense, you can see here the spectrum. In this spectrum, these wavelengths or spectral lines are arranged in orderly, either in the increasing order of frequency or in the increasing order of wavelength. Okay, so here the increasing order of wavelength they are arranged, that is the violet color, blue color, then after the green color, then after yellow, then orange, then red. So in this direction the wavelength of these spectral lines are increasing, in the sense they are orderly arranged or sequentially arrangement of wavelength is called spectrum. Okay, so why we need to study about spectrum? So spectrum is a fingerprint of an element. Just like fingerprint of each human being is different, spectrum of each element in this universe is also different. In the sense, on the basis of these spectral lines, we can see here, on the basis of these spectral lines, we can find the element for which it belongs. In the sense, if we know the wavelength of these lines, then we can guess which element that spectrum belongs to, which element can be determined. So you can guess how. So that is, in the sense, every element is having its own spectrum, own spectral lines. For example, I take a spectrum of copper and spectrum of iron. You find the plenty of lines in the copper spectrum as well as iron spectrum, but no line in both the spectrum is having same wavelength or same frequency. Just like every human being's fingerprint is different, likewise these spectral lines are also different for different element. So just by obtaining the spectrum, by finding the spectral lines wavelength or frequency, we can guess which element's spectrum it is. Okay, the whole world research and industries are depend on the spectroscopy. So that is, it may be a medical science, it may be a industrial, it may be a any technological research, or it may be any plant. Even we can find the spectrum of the plant elements, so plants. So from that we can study the composition of the plants, composition of the atmosphere. So in the similar manner, if we take a spectrum of, that is sun, spectrum of stars, then we can find the constituents of the stars or constituents of the sun. In the sense, sun's atmosphere, the elements present in the sun's atmosphere can be found, the elements present in the star's atmosphere can be found by just taking a spectrum of these. So just imagine that how applicable this spectroscopy in the present research world. Okay, So there are plenty of applications. I told in every research field, the spectroscopy is essential to identify. It may be a chemistry, it may be a physics, it may be a biology, it may be a zoology, it may be a botany, or it may be any research field in that the spectroscopy plays a vital role. Okay, so now to understand how spectrum emit from the atom, we must know the structure of the atom very well. So the spectral lines, you already studied some of the atomic models up to Bohr atomic model you already studied in the PUC science second year. Further we will study, that is the vector atom model, but let us make some brush up on the, that is PUC science second year, that is the discovery of the electron. Who discovered the electron? J.J. Thomson. So after the discovery of the electron, the fact that electron is a common constituent of all matter made physicists think about the structure of the atom. Previously, it is considered that atom is the smallest constituent, but after the discovery of the electron, no more the atom becomes the smallest constituent of matter. So now the smallest constituent of matter is becomes electron. Now, obviously, now the atom could not be considered as the smallest constituent of matter. To account for the experimentally obtained spectroscopic data, several theories have been successively proposed, which are called atomic models. Now, after the discovery of the electron, that is, the scientists started thinking about the structure of the atom, and by doing some experiments they obtained some data. On the basis of that data they proposed some atomic models, so that we will discuss. So various atomic models are as follows. So first model is J.J. Thomson model. According to this model, atom is positively charged sphere of size 10 raised to minus 10 meter. The electrons are embedded inside the sphere just like a seeds of an watermelon fruit. The positive charge on the sphere is uniformly distributed, which balances the negative charged electrons. So this explains neutrality of an atom. Here you can see the Thomson atomic model. He compared the atom with the watermelon fruit, in which the red portion is the positive charge and the seeds of the watermelon are designated as the electron. Okay, and the positive charge and negative charge are same in magnitude, so therefore he says the atom is neutral. But this model is having so many demerits in that it could not explain the origin of spectral lines, in the sense how a spectrum is, or the spectral line or the light is emitted from the atom. It could not be explained by the Thomson model. And the second most demerit is it could not explain the large angle of scattering of alpha particles from the thin metal foil as observed by Rutherford. So already Rutherford is also studying the, in order to propose the structure of the atom. So he performed some experiments in that he took an alpha particle and made incident on the thin gold foil, and that alpha particle is scattered back, reflected back. So that could not be explained by J.J. Thomson. So therefore the next atomic model is the Rutherford atomic model. The first model is J.J. Thomson atomic model, which failed to explain the structure of the atom. Then the further next, the Rutherford atomic model comes. So according to Rutherford atomic model, Rutherford performed a number of experiments on the scattering of alpha particles by thin gold foil. The most of the alpha particles went undeflected and some of them are turned back. From these observations, he came to the conclusion that the atom is consisting of heavy positive charges concentrated at the center of the atom called nucleus. The cloud of negative charges surrounds this nucleus. In the sense, according to Rutherford took a thin gold foil and made incident a alpha particle. Most of the alpha particles went undeflected and some of them are reflected back. So why this alpha particle is reflected back? So he observed that alpha particle is a positively charged particle. So therefore there is a positively charged concentrated positive charges are present at the center of the atom. That is the positive charges get reflected. So therefore the he concluded that there is a heavy massive positive charge is situated at the center of the atom that he designated as nucleus. So therefore the invention of the nucleus, the credit of invention of the nucleus thus goes to Rutherford. So, according to him, the electrons are revolving around the nucleus with emitting electromagnetic radiations continuously. So, therefore, continuously it loses its energy and finally falls into the nucleus moving with a spiral path. Now, he says that is according to Rutherford model, the electrons are continuously revolving around the nucleus with radiating energy and finally it loses its energy and fall into the nucleus. So in the sense electron finally falls into the nucleus. So it is also having the demerits that are this theory could not explain the stability of the atom. In the sense electrons are not stable there, they lose their energy and fall into the nucleus, so the electrons get collapsed and it could not explain the emission of spectral lines. So here how the spectral line is emitted from the atom, it could not be explained by the Rutherford atomic model. So therefore this theory also fails to explain the structure of the atom. So next atomic model is Bohr's atomic model. You all studied this Bohr's atomic model, but still we will discuss. Bohr's assumed basically Rutherford nuclear model of the atom and tried to overcome the defects of the model. The postulates are as follows. An electron cannot revolve around the nucleus in all possible orbits as suggested by the classical theory. The electron can revolve around the nucleus only in those allowed or permissible orbits for which the angular momentum of the electron is an integral multiple of n into h by 2 pi. The orbits are stationary orbits and the electron revolve around the nucleus. In these orbits do not radiate energy. In the sense, here is the nucleus. Around this nucleus there are stationary orbits. In these stationary orbits the electrons are revolving and these electrons are revolving with an angular momentum of n into h by 2 pi, and if n is equal to 1 then that is the first orbit, n is equal to 2 that is the second orbit, n is equal to 3 that is the third orbit. Likewise the angular momentum of these electrons goes on increasing, but when the electron enter into the first orbit its angular momentum is n is equal to 1, so therefore it becomes h by 2 pi only. Any electron which enter into the first orbit, it must rotate with an angular velocity h by 2 pi. So that is the first postulate of Bohr's atomic model. Then the second is an atom radiate energy only when an electron jumps from a stationary orbit of higher energy to one of the lower energy. And how the spectral line is emitted from the atom whenever an electron from higher orbit jumps to the lower orbit, the energy difference between the two energy level is emitted in the form of electromagnetic radiation. So that is, a photon is emitted with an energy E is equal to hf or h nu. That relation we already know, and E2 minus E1 is equal to h nu. That is how the spectral line is emitted from the atom is explained. But Bohr's atomic model is also having some demerits. That is, the first demerit is it could not explain how the orbital electrons are distributed in an atom. So here, how the electrons are distributed in these orbits, it could not be explained by the Bohr's atomic model, because the Bohr's atomic model is based on the hydrogen atom, which is consisting of only two electrons. Then the second demerit is it could not explain the fine structure of H alpha, H beta and H gamma lines of Paschen series. That is how the fine spectral lines are emitted from the atoms. It could not be explained by the Bohr's atomic model. So therefore Bohr atomic model is also fails to explain the complete structure of, that is, atom. Okay, let us study the next atomic model, that is proposed by Sommerfeld. Sommerfeld relativistic atomic model we call it. So to explain the observed fine structure of spectral lines, Sommerfeld introduced two main modifications in the Bohr's theory. He used the Bohr's atomic theory and he made some changes in the Bohr's atomic model. That is, the first is the path of the electron around the nucleus is an ellipse with a nucleus at one of the foci. The circular orbits of the Bohr are special case of this. So what he says, that is, the orbital path is elliptical and the nucleus is at one of its foci. So the velocity of the electron moving in an elliptical orbit varies considerably at different parts of the orbits. So this causes the relativistic variation of the mass of the electron with velocity. Hence this is known as relativistic atomic model. In the sense, electron is negatively charged, nucleus is positively charged, and the orbit is elliptical. When an electron makes a rotation or revolve around the nucleus, as the electron approaches towards the nucleus, its velocity increases because of attraction between the nucleus and the electron, because nucleus is positively charged and the electron is negatively charged. As it goes away from the nucleus, the velocity of the electron decreases. Hence this is known as the relativistic atomic model. But the Sommerfeld relativistic atomic model is also have some demerits, that are, the Sommerfeld theory could not predict the correct number of fine structure lines. In the sense, so when you observe the spectrum, in that spectrum the fine spectral lines, the number of fine spectral lines, how these number of this much number of fine spectral lines are emitted from the atom, that could not be explained by Sommerfeld atomic model, and it could not give correct information about the relative intensities of the lines. In the sense, when you observe the spectrum, in that spectrum some spectral lines are having more intense than the some other lines. So in the sense, there is a variation in the intensity of the spectral lines. Why this variation of intensity of the spectral lines? It could not be explained by Sommerfeld relativistic atomic model. So therefore, in order to provide satisfactory explanation of complex spectra of atoms and their relation to the structure, the vector atomic model was introduced. Okay, so that vector atomic model we will discuss in the next class.